The minerals deal, or rather the peace treaty, or rather not the peace treaty, but this geological handshake, this agreement that is not on the surface about war or diplomacy, but about graphite, lithium, titanium, and the sinews of post war reconstruction. And yet, this is a deal that may matter just as much. President Zelenskyy of Ukraine apparently is poised to sign what many are calling the landmark minerals deal with the United States. On its face, the deal is technical, economic, and future oriented, but in reality, it's an unmistakably political document, and it may represent the first flicker of engagement, however transactional, between Ukraine and the Trump administration after months of fractious relations. So the document, about 3,500 words long, sets out 5 key objectives: economic cooperation, post-war reconstruction, institutional transformation, global economic integration, and transparent investment. But what's truly strategic is what lies beneath Ukraine's soil: the rare earth elements, lithium for batteries, titanium for aerospace, and graphite for electric vehicles. And these are the war chests of the 21st century, and they are largely untouched because they lie, in part, under the Russian occupation. Now, this is not a peace agreement, but it is a form of engagement, an economic tether, possibly a global lifeline, and certainly a hedge against Europe's slower strategic recalibration. Remember, it was only in February that Zelenskyy flew to Washington to sign this deal, only to be publicly chastised by President Trump and, of course, the gerbil J.D. Vance. A spectacle was bruising. Trump demanded gratitude. Vice President J.D. Vance told him literally to just say thank you and wear a suit. The signing was scrapped, and the world was reminded again that Trump doesn't do diplomacy in the conventional way. He does it as theatre. He does it as power play. And yet here we are again. And we're here again because there was someone who was playing that power button bigger than Trump. And that was the late Pope Francis. This deal was cemented in the Vatican. And it is extraordinary. And I think both partners are now engaged in something that goes beyond the frustrations that they have both expressed. The deal has re-emerged, reportedly strengthened, with new clauses ensuring joint ownership, future profits, and no immediate transfer of Ukraine's infrastructure or assets, unlike the earlier drafts, which looked suspiciously like a liquidation sale. It even excludes any mention of Ukraine's debt for previous US military aid, sidestepping Trump's earlier demand for a $300 billion repayment. So, why the optimism and why the change? Well, it may simply be that Zelenskyy has accepted some sort of reality about this in an American election year, with Trump having just finished his first 100 days, with the election very much in people's memory, and with US support no longer automatic. This is the beginning of a new period. And whatever Zelenskyy is planning, he's got 4 years of this. Ukraine must stake its case with business logic, not moral arguments. And this minerals deal, half economic recovery, half diplomatic placeholder, offers Trump something he can call a win at the end of 100 days, a flagship investment in America First terms. And for Zelenskyy, it's the beginning of re-legitimizing Ukraine's place in US strategy and getting Americans in Ukraine, maybe not American soldiers, or maybe American soldiers to protect the diggers and the mineral gatherers, but it brings a show of America into the field. And that, I think, is important. And this is the key. The draft explicitly does not violate Ukraine's path to EU integration or its previous critical minerals partnership with Brussels. That was one of the sticking points. It's been smoothed. And what's left unsaid is just as important, the security question. Though the deal touches on alignment, it is silent on NATO. There's no ceasefire, no territorial agreement, no formal guarantee of Ukraine's sovereignty, and yet this minerals deal could serve as the scaffolding for re-engagement. Is it cynical? Absolutely. Is it pragmatic? Certainly. Ukraine, faced with occupation, stagnating front lines, dwindling Western resolve, is pivoting to what it can still control: economic leverage. And Zelensky is trading minerals not for peace, but for relevance. And if this means that Trump has to engage with Russians who are occupying space which is technically Ukrainian, and if that is accepted, there is suddenly a path for a neutral area which is being ploughed for minerals rather than fought over. For Trump, the appeal is obvious. A deal like this lets him say he's doing something in Ukraine without escalating military commitments. It's a diplomacy without deployment, commodities instead of casualties. Of course, concerns remain. Some fear this deal could be a Trojan horse for Trump's real aim to freeze the conflict, legitimize Russia's hold on Crimea and Donbass, and reframe American support as a transactional exchange. Trump has hinted more than once that Crimea could be conceded. And Zelensky, for his part, maintains that this is a red line. But how bright that line remains under pressure now is anybody's guess. And suddenly, it's the red ink on the paper which matters more than the red line on the ground. It's a flicker of optimism, a splash of scarlet. And not because this is a peace deal, but because it is a deal. Because it's simply any deal. And for two leaders who barely spoke civilly just weeks ago, for two nations increasingly misaligned in their priorities, to craft something mutually beneficial, well, it's not peace, but it's not silence either. And I cannot but think this has been conducted under the spirit of Pope Francis. The minerals deal may not end the war, but it marks the return of dialogue, the return of talking. And if politics is the art of the possible, then perhaps this glittering seam of graphite and lithium will do what diplomacy could not. It will keep the conversation alive.